Hello, my name is Douglas today, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm here to read the Daily Reflections book for July 8th, 2024. It's called An Ever-Growing Freedom. The seventh step is where we make the change in our attitude, which permits us with humility as our guide to move out from ourselves toward others and toward God. That's from the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book, also on page 76. When I finally asked God to remove those things blocking me from Him and the sunlight of the Spirit, I embarked on a journey more glorious than I ever imagined. I experienced the freedom from those characteristics that had me wrapped up in myself. Because of this humbling step, I feel clean. I am especially aware of this step because I'm now able to be useful to God and to my fellows. I know that He has granted me strength to do His bidding and has prepared me for anyone and anything that comes my way today. I am truly in His hands, and I give thanks for the joy that I can be useful today, period, the end of the reading. Somewhere, I don't know right where off the top of my head, but likely in the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book. That book is packed with information, as is the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This one here, this is a small travel version, if you will, copy of it, is something called the 7-Step Prayer, if I didn't say that already. And that's, it goes something like, God, please remove from me now anything that hinders me from being useful to my fellow man or fellow human, or something to that effect. So this thing here, an ever-growing freedom. Well, so the 7-step prayer, this is the 7th month, and we're pretty well focusing on the 7th step, which goes like this. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. What shortcomings? Well, they could also be your defects of character discovered in step 6, or they could be the admissions of the exact nature of your wrongs from step 5, or it might be a conglomeration or a compilation of those things and the stuff from step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory. So you could try and lump all this together: a moral inventory, the nature of your wrongs, your defects of character, your shortcomings, and let's see, I think that's it. It should be 4 things. A searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, not the other guy, not your neighbor, not your competitor, not the enemy. It's just what is on our moral inventory. Searching and fearless moral inventory. And then the step 5, admitted to God, ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. We're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character and humbly ask Him to remove these shortcomings. Okay, so the moral inventory, nature of your wrongs, defects of character, and your shortcomings. 4 things that could be part of this ever-growing freedom. The 7th step is where we make the change in our attitude, which permits us with humility as our guide. Remember what I said the other day about humility? Comprising of, well, I said 2 things, but there's probably a lot more things. But 2 of the ones I know about that comprise humility, it would be gratitude and honesty. And that goes against the grain of a lot of people's ego. Our ego doesn't want to be fully honest a lot of times. And I forget the other thing already. No matter what people tell you, alcoholism does cause brain damage to some degree. I drank enough alcohol to kill a lot of my brain off, or to ruin some of the neural links up there, and everything has to work differently now. So sometimes I just space out and forget what I'm talking about, but it'll pop back in there. The ever-growing freedom, and the 7th month of July, the 7th step, which says this. That's where I went off the map, so to speak, here today. Step 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. So the humility, which causes us to do things humbly, you could put it that way, or I'm going to put it that way. I don't care how you put it, I guess. We ask to have our shortcomings removed, and I feel like this is we should include step 6. So step 6 and step 7 go hand in hand, because step 6 says we're entirely ready. That's something to talk about there also. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, and then I'm going to say, how might that occur? By doing step 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings, which could be deficits in your moral inventory and your defects of character, or the other thing, shortcomings, if I didn't say that. So, these steps are in order, 1 through 12. A lot of people will say, do the steps in order, and that is a good plan right at the face of it. However, a lot of times we're not here. For example, step 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. One of the reasons they're in a sequential order 1 through 12 is that it would be hard to be entirely ready to God if you hadn't admitted to God, ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And that's difficult to do if you don't know what you're talking about. So you need this moral inventory. You need to make this decision in step 3 to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And again, I'm going to give you a lot of leeway on who or what you call your God as you understand him, because that's just another tough nut to crack, coming out of the gutter like I did, or like maybe some of you. And that it's hard to make that decision to turn over your, what I'm thinking and doing over to something else other than me and my ego and my alcoholism and the monkey on my back. So we need to come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, and part of being restored to sanity would be that that maybe I'm not the be-all, end-all in every situation all the time, 24/7. Maybe I can open myself up to some new things. And why on earth would we ever even want to consider doing any of this stuff? Well, because step 1, we admitted we're powerless over alcohol, or maybe smoking, or sex, or gambling, or heroin, or fentanyl, or all kinds of different stuff. And because of that powerlessness, when we get around those substances, our lives had become unmanageable. And then you can argue, your ego, my ego, told me that this is still manageable, when it clearly was not. When you're, I don't even know where to begin. Say you once had a home and a house and a wife and children and a car and a good job and a career that you loved, and you lost it all eventually, just bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. That's somewhat of what I did in my life. And at every new loss, say, my ego was still telling me that this is still manageable. This is salvageable. This isn't a big deal yet. This is just some unlucky circumstance, or somebody else and just all kinds and manner of lies. And I chose to believe it because I wanted the alcohol, and then I could have it. I could just justify my use of the alcohol. And really what all this is, alcoholism, is just an allergy to, you can call it a poison, I do these days, but just an allergy to a allergen, I guess it's called, to some substance. Some people can drink it and have one and done, and that's it. When I start drinking alcohol, thinking about alcohol, smelling alcohol, being around alcohol, not so much anymore, but what if I consumed it? That would set up a craving for more, and that could never be satisfied, it turns out. I've tried, 30, 40 beers, you'd think that's enough. No, then a blackout, and then come to, and then try it again the next day. That's part of the insanity of the alcoholism, at least in this guy's case. So you can imagine, and you would be right to imagine, that takes a lot of selfishness. Number one, you just look at everything that you've lost, and then you figure out who were you trying to satisfy, and that monkey is never satisfied, but you keep trying like a slave to. It's just ridiculous, alcoholism. It's a serious disease. It's perilous to humans, man. It will kill a lot of humans. I don't know if you guys watch TV, but when they push that shingles vaccination shot from some drug company, whatever it is, you're doing all this stuff, hiking, canoeing, and having a good time. Shingles doesn't care. That's like alcoholism. Doesn't care who you are. It doesn't matter what you have planned for tomorrow, what you have built in your past and are managing these days. Alcoholism doesn't care. It'll take us all down if we give it the opportunity, if we're an alcoholic. Okay, what's the big book say about it? It's cunning, powerful, baffling, and, in my words, patient. So it'll wait for you to relapse and bammo. So an ever-growing freedom. With humility as a guide, we can move out from ourselves toward others and towards God. And now back to the 7-step prayer. That would be a good one to say in the morning every day. Is that, God, please remove from me all the defects of character that prevent me from helping my fellow suffering alcoholic. We can just begin with that segment of the population. Maybe you don't have anybody like that, and you do have immediate family. Maybe you have new children. Maybe you have a new wife. Maybe you're courting a new spouse. Maybe you can help them out a bit more. Be more flexible. With humility as our guide. We don't always have to have everything our way. That was part of the fuel of the lie from the alcohol, I think, from that monkey. And that's also that thing that keeps an argument going, and nobody ever... here's a line from another movie, Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze and the guy with the voice and the mustache. I can't think of Tom, somebody. Anyways, there are a couple of bouncers, and they're sitting there having a couple one night, talking about philosophical things, I think. I haven't seen this movie in 25 years at least. And I guess, what's his name, Brody? No, that's, well, whoever the king bouncer. Patrick Swayze's character says, nobody ever wins a fight. So our ego, the monkey on your back, your pride and your selfishness is the force pushing us into these conflicts that keep fighting to keep drinking, basically. It's just, your wife might tell you or ask you, where were you tonight or whatever, and then we start lying to them and all this kind of stuff to cover up where we were and what we were actually doing, and it just rips the family apart. And why on earth do people do that? well, your pride and ego don't want to admit that you have a problem, you're addicted to a substance, and you're powerless over it, regardless of how important your marriage is. I kept using drugs and alcohol, and like it wasn't a big deal, and it certainly was. Anyways, we're at 15 minutes here, and I got about 3 minutes to make a summary point if I can. I never come at these with, or I could say I rarely have more of a point or a plan or anything, script or whatever, worked out ahead of time, other than this is the 7th month, and so let's talk about the 7th step. And a big part of the 7th step is humility. Step 7, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. From this book, I know you're not probably going to be able to read it, probably not going to be able to read it, but above my finger there it says Step 7, humbly asked Him, capital H. Who's this Him that we're referring to? Well, that's out of Step 2 and 3, I believe, that we came to believe that a power greater and turn our wills and lives over to God. And remember, you get all kinds of leeway from this guy on who you choose to pick as your power greater and God, or your higher power, or your saving grace, or whatever you think fits best for yourself. Because the idea here is that we're not in control. The disease is in control, and it's causing our brains to malfunction and make very poor decisions that we are led to believe are correct and the best and all that. Like 9 beers isn't enough, have one more, call it an even 10, that'll be good, or whatever. It's some kind of crazy nonsense like that. So the power greater than can be your backup advisory committee, I suppose. And the way I look at all that stuff is I started off by using the other recovering alcoholics within Alcoholics Anonymous, at large even. People I don't even personally really know. Just like the literature, the people that have written this stuff for the longest time, years. That was the power greater than me. And I didn't know who God was, what His name was, what His address is, how to contact Him. I didn't have any of that information. Likely you don't either, if you really look at it. And if you try and assign scientific methods to it, I don't think you're going to come up with a concrete answer that you like either. So I'm going to have to, they're going to cut me off here real quick. When we come up with a plan for the day and it involves drinking, check with your advisory board to see if that's a wise idea. So that's the power greater than. Your sponsors say, or the rest of AA, or call a treatment center, or whatever 800 number that might be available to see if that's a good plan for an alcoholic to start the day off drinking. And then if you are drinking and having a problem, get help. It will kill you, likely. Anyhow, on that sad note, goodbye.